Jean.
Hi, Susie.
Good evening.
All right.
How are you?
All right, thank you. Yes, pleased to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Are you walking or zooming tomorrow? 11:30. It's 4 degrees.
Yes, walking, I think. Yeah.
Okay then. So I'll see you at 11:30.
Yeah.
At the end of that road somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
Am I the only one at the moment?
Yes, you are. What sort of a week have you had?
All right, thank you. Yes, as I'm doing my exercises, I'm improving, and I'm sleeping better.
Good.
And I've ordered some more spray so that I've got some in.
Oh, good.
I went into the bank and I said I'm exempt, and then I went to Holland and Barrett. When I collected my spray last Saturday, I didn't wear it, and nobody said anything. And then when I went in yesterday to order some more, nobody said anything.
No.
So I've got the confidence to do it now.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's difficult because here we go. Evening, Liz.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
Grand. Yeah, well, yeah, more or less.
Oh, good.
I'm working from home.
Well, today was just a disaster day. Yeah. So.
Oh. Yes.
But
Don't talk about it.
You are working. You are
Yes.
working.
Yes. I was in the office Tuesday, and I'm going again tomorrow. So we go maybe once or twice a week to, try and keep on top of things, and then do all the paperwork things at home.
Right. Yes.
And Zooms, and so this is my day. Yeah.
And so everything that could go wrong went wrong.
It was one of those kind of things, all the politics and too many people working separately, and all of this kind of creating chaos when chaos isn't needed. We're creating chaos where there shouldn't be chaos, but that's normal. It's too many people all being important, and
Oh.
yeah, but it can be dangerous. People can do things maybe with the best intentions, not even bad intentions, but just doing stupid things that could really cost us in the long run. And as long as you always have to be trying to make sure you're not blamed for other people's mistakes. That's what you spend half your day doing.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Anyway.
That sounds like hard work that you could do without.
You know what? It's the try working around the work is always the biggest problem. The work itself you can do. I wouldn't say it was that hard. But it's all the politics and all the things, the egos and the empires. That you have to try to maneuver around that create the work.
Right.
And then there's the rework, obviously.
The rework, yes.
What do you do?
I buy clothes for a clothing company, for a retail chain.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's a disaster at the moment because they've just extended the lockdown in Germany until the end of March. So, they announced that last night, but there's very confusing rules, similar to kind of Boris's rules. If the incidence is below 50, you can open, but if it's over 50, you can't. And in this area, you can do that. And in the other area, you can do that. And nobody has any clue.
Oh.
But what they are doing, which I think is good, is you can make an appointment now to go to a shop like a boutique or something, and you could say book an hour slot or half an hour, and then go and have a look around the shop and maybe select a few items on your own. So they're bringing that in now.
Perfect for me.
I
I'd like.
don't know if you can do that in the UK, but they're doing it. So yeah, I think our crowd, they started it in the Netherlands this week. It'll be half an hour shops, slots. I mean, I don't know how you can make money, but I guess it just keeps some
Yes.
interest in the customer coming to the door.
Mm.
I think it can work for small boutiques where people have lots of money, and they can go for say a half an hour or an hour and look around the shop, and then you kind of have to buy something, wouldn't you?
Of course you.
You would. You would feel obliged.
That's what I mean. But for some of these people, their money is no object. But at least it means people can actually do something,
Yeah.
And some of these small boutiques might only have one person in the shop at a time, or
Mm.
maybe 6 or 7 people in a day. I don't know how many people they get, but I guess it's better than nothing, isn't it?
It's buying clothes and having nowhere to go.
Well, that's it. I kind of thought, well, it's really no good. There's nowhere to go, Yeah, so I mean, they're talking about maybe you could eat outside. Well, it was pouring rain all day today, and it was 6 degrees. So, I mean, that'd be nice, shouldn't it? I went out and had a cup of coffee, and I'm standing under, because you're not allowed to stand outside where you bought the coffee. You can stand outside the shop next door, obviously, but you're kind of looking for a doorway that you could just stand in while you're drinking it. And you see people standing in doorways, eating their sandwiches or something like that. I mean, I thought this is what we've come to,
Mm, mm.
but you
Yes.
couldn't sit out. I mean, it's
Lurking about.
freezing, it's freezing.
Crazy.
The shopkeeper on the Isle of Man, and she's gone online and she's modeling outfits and saying this costs this and this looks very nice, and she's selling stuff.
They're all selling
Amazing.
it because a friend of mine works in a boutique here, and they're doing well. And you click, they're calling it like click and collect. So you have to pay for it and then arrange to pick it up, and they can just go out the door. It's contactless, so they can give you can phone and they'll come to the shop and they'll give it to you. So they've been allowed to do that as long as it's contactless. But some people have really taken it a step further, and they've opened the shop door and put a table at the shop door. And it's like, it's just that they're really stretching it, to the limit, so that they have the door open and they kind of have a counter and they're taking money over the counter like that.
Mm. Yeah. You
But
can't
needs
blame
must,
people,
if it's your business, you need to do something.
really.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
It's people's livelihoods,
Yeah.
Really different.
Yeah. Otherwise, you sort of get forgotten amongst all of the.
Well, that's the
corporate-
other thing. I think you have to
Really.
keep people coming to the shop. I think particularly for smaller individual boutiques, it's really important to keep people coming so that they don't forget about you or go somewhere else.
Well.
I mean,
Yeah, well, that's where the supermarkets, I guess, you can go in and they'll obviously have their clothing line. So that's where they're buying them now. But obviously, in the
Yeah.
supermarket.
and it's very unfair. There's a
Yeah,
huge
it is.
unfairness.
Mm.
It seems very odd. I was in Sainsbury's today and everyone's like, and then, of course, there is a hint, all the suntan lotions are out. I'm thinking, really?
Yeah, but
Okay.
where are you going? I mean, you don't need, it's like pie in the sky, but I mean, they probably had ordered the suntan lotion last year, thinking
True.
you would need it. So they have to put it somewhere. But there's a huge amount of unfairness. I mean, there's a supermarket near me and it sells, like a section with packs of socks, packs of tights, underwear, this kind of easy pajamas, in pack of 2, or in, like you would say, have it next. And they're selling that, and it's so unfair then for the stores that have to close maybe completely because they only sell clothing.
Mm.
That seems better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that today. I hadn't noticed it before, but I just thought, oh, yeah, it's just.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
that we went back to school, I mean, they're full of women trying to find clothing for their kids. And it's like, oh, God,
Yeah,
because they've
but
grown
some
since
some
Christmas.
country, whether Czechoslovakia or something, one of these countries, allowed the shops to open just to sell children's clothes because
they-
it was, which in some ways is a good idea. But so I think the shops had to rearrange and just have children's wear at the front or a
Alright.
section off the others, and you could go to the children's wear section because there were so many objections. Because 2-3 months is a long time in a child's life.
It is.
Oh, it is. Especially if you don't have siblings to hand me downs, you're stuck.
You know, and shoes and things like that, which are a necessity. Yeah, and if you don't have, but maybe people are getting together and swapping. Maybe this will be a good thing out of it, you know, that people could swap clothes, but some people look down their nose at that, you know, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any?
No.
Good
Well-
evening, Anne.
Hi, Anne.
Hi.
How
Hi.
are you?
Well, we're back in lockdown.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
But yes, we went back in, it was announced on Monday and they gave us Tuesday to, so my grandson spent the whole day up till 12 o'clock with his girlfriend.
Oh,
Oh, bless.
They really enjoyed themselves and then now they're separate. Now the other grandson, his girlfriend's come to stay in the house for lockdown. We've had 26 deaths and they were all from a nursing home with people with very, very, you know,
underlying.
on the road to death, to be honest, you know. And we've had 450 cases but we've only had three people in hospital. But they sort of are terrified, you know. So the difficulty is the boat. You see, we depend on the boat coming in and out. So the people who work on the boat, you know, work 1 week on, 1 week off. Well, you can't expect them to, if nobody's quarantining, like we aren't at most of the time, as you know, you can't expect them to spend their whole, you know, they're a key service to spend their whole lives in lockdown. And so they're just saying, no, we won't do it, you know, which is fair enough. I mean, why should they?
And is that how the virus is spreading?
Well, it has this time come from that cluster, yes, from the
Right.
boat. Yeah. So I think there's about 100 people, you know, that they've tracked down, you know, all this tracking and we're all being told to stay in and not go out, you know. I mean, basically, if you have to go out, you go out for a walk, you know, or you can go shopping, but they have special times for old people like me to go shopping, you know, first thing in the morning for the first hour. And it's all masks and, you know, hand stuff and everything. So yes, we went in Tuesday night, but I'm so glad that my grandson, the weekend before, had his 18th birthday
Oh,
party
bless.
Oh,
Yeah.
with all his 20 friends. So we've been very lucky, really, you know. So he's always worked out, because this is our third lockdown, that he's always been in the free part. When he had his prom, you know, with his girlfriend, and that was, we were free and open. But I don't know, I think the island's going to have to accept, you know, that we have to get it in the community, you know, and accept it. But you know, as you say, nearly 500 people have had it and they've all recovered, you know. And the people that died were all over 80 in very, very bad circumstances. I mean, you're not in a nursing home unless you're pretty bad. You might be in a residential home, but not a nursing home. But I think people aren't willing, you know, they're very shut the island down, keep it down, keep it out. Anyway, it doesn't bother me much because basically I do stay in my house and garden most of the time, except for going for a walk, you know, and I just go around the estate or go down the prom for a walk and keep well away from everybody. So my life isn't much different to, you know, to when I'm out of lockdown, except I'll go and see my family, and obviously I can't do that. But you see, this is great, isn't it? The Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, I sort of Zoom with my family and we do quizzes and everything, you know. I think it'd be much worse if you hadn't got this, really. And of
I
course
don't think we would manage if we didn't have Zoom. I don't
No,
think
no,
we could really manage if we didn't have Zooming and WhatsApp chats and you know
Yeah.
all of the, because you can
Yeah.
have like this, you can do this kind of thing on WhatsApp as well. You know, you
Yeah.
can have 3 or 4 people in a conversation, you know.
Well, we've been awfully lucky because we had a lockdown till May. Then we came completely out of it until after Christmas. We had people coming back to the island, students. Believe it or not, all the old people on the island said the students shouldn't come back for Christmas. I mean, how can you tell kids don't come back from university to your home, you know? Anyway, they came back and of course they brought COVID with them. And so we went into a 3-week one and that worked, except now we're back in again. We're only back in for 3 weeks at the moment, but it really depends on what happens. But we've been very lucky because we haven't had long really in lockdown. Just the first set lot was long, 12 weeks, and now we've had 3 weeks in January, and now we're into another 3 weeks, so it's not bad. But I just pity people who are trying to teach children at home, you know, I don't know how they do it really. And that's what my daughter goes mad. She said, I have to do 3 meals a day, Mum. She said, they never stop eating.
Okay.
And she's trying to work, you know. Luckily, my grandson is able to go to work because he only works in a small place and they've managed to separate the 5 people so that they're not connected. So he actually goes to work every day, which is good because he'd drive her mad if he was home all the time. And the other grandson works in his bedroom. He's doing work from college and coursework. And the older grandson's girlfriend has moved in because he would be unbearable if he couldn't connect with her. And of course, the sentences we have here on the island are much worse than fines. You go to prison if you break the quarantine.
Oh.
So you don't want to see Romeo and Juliet going to prison, do you? Because they can't bear not to see each other. So she moves in and she's at work, so she works. My daughter's got a little study for herself and the other girlfriend works on the kitchen table. He goes to work, which is good, and the other fellow's working in the bedroom. But she said it's the food. She said they don't stop eating all day long, you know. And they're all expecting, you know, lunches and teas and everything. And of course, she's trying to do a full-time job as well, you know.
She has to say, there's the fridge, there's the cooker.
Oh, exactly.
I know.
Like get Jamie Oliver video on and say, look, follow that. Yeah.
Every lunchtime.
I
isn't it?
think I think at the moment she likes to avoid all confrontation because I don't think she could stand. It's easier to make them all a meal, really. You know, the one who's working, he can order. He orders himself in pizzas and things, and eats like a vulture. You know, he never stops. But we've been so much luckier. But I did realise, you know, that there's a lot to do with your psyche. Because on Sunday, I had an idea this was coming up, and I went into Marks and Spencer's early and got a pile of shopping. And I met a friend who plays bridge, and she's very, very nervous. And she said, she was just trembling, and she said, I can't stand it. I can't stand this lockdown. I can't stand being on my own, you know. And I just thought, you know, it's all right if you sort of, I read a lot, watch television. I do my exercises for my knee every day. And by the time I've made meals and washed, I hate duvet covers, don't you? God, I struggle with duvet covers. But in the end, I'm half in the ruddy duvet cover, you know. But yeah, but I realised that if you're a very nervous disposition, it's a terrible thing for her.
Yes.
You know, I've said she's not on this, so I have said I'll ring her every day But I just felt so sorry for her because she said she was shaking.
Oh,
And there
bless.
must be so many people like that, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Her family are all in England, you see. I mean, you know, she's coming up to my age, you know. But as I say, my life isn't much different, you know, to when, you know, to when when we're out a lot, except I see the family more and I go swimming and I go to the gym and I go to the choir. But I've got a little bike thing here that I go on every day. So I just follow a similar routine, but in the house, really.
Mhm.
And I actually quite like being on my own too. So that's probably a plus, isn't it, really, you know?
Yes, if you like your own company.
Yeah, I do really. As long as I've got a book, I'm happy. And I've got my Kindle and I can order another book, you know, whenever I'm out. But I feel just sorry for families, you
Yeah.
know, because you're all on top of each other, aren't you? Especially the houses are so small now.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think there are some people that do feel very isolated, aren't there?
Mm.
Yeah. Mm. Well.
Oh, no, Deborah tonight.
No, Deborah's not joining us tonight. No.
Mm.
So she sends you all hellos, and says she'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Oh, that's good.
Anything that you want to mention before we start?
Not that I can think of, Susie.
No. Shall I jump right in then?
Yeah.
Here we go. So this week, we're going to have a look at fats, and I think often this information, you know, it's a lot of it's known now because there's a lot in the press about omega-3, omega-6, essential fats. But what we're going to have a look at is a little bit about the history of fats and what's happened. You might be surprised because saturated fats get a really, really bad press, but they're not necessarily totally responsible. So I'm going to do some comparisons and have a look at what we use fats for and where they come in from. And we can have a little chat about supplementation a little bit at the end, and then also one-to-one as well. So I was astonished when I learned that the first kind of margarine-like oil called hydrogenated oil shortening went onto the shelves in 1911, because I didn't realise it was quite that early. And a hydrogenated fat is one that they've heated to a high temperature. So it starts off as a liquid oil, usually a vegetable oil, and they heat it to a high temperature and then add water to it. And that creates your solid fat. And so from nothing in 1910, it rose from 0 to about 10% of consumption per person per day. I'm not actually quite sure what it is at the moment. Sometimes these statistics are quite difficult to come across. But vegetable fat consumption, since in those 110 years, has gone up from 21 gram to 70 gram a day. Whereas animal fat is down a little bit from 104 to 99 gram a day. And so often saturated fats do get blamed for the heart disease that is very prevalent now. But if we have a look at statistics on fats, beef, consumption of beef meat, so the saturated fats in the meat has gone up, and chicken consumption has gone up as well. And also the fat content in poultry has increased because of the way that we feed them. Whereas consumption of pigs or pork has gone down, and apparently consumption of fish and seafood has stayed about the same, which, you know, at the time when I read that, I found quite surprising. Other meats has gone down. So I think people used to eat a lot more things like rabbit and other game meats like pheasants and, you know, that kind of thing, because they would catch them, or, you know, local poachers would catch them and sort of farm them out to the local community for a little handout. Now, surprisingly as well, butter and lard consumption are both down by about 80%, whereas consumption of beef dripping has gone up 2.5 times, and consumption of margarines is up by 9 times the amount was. And then we've got salad and cooking oils, all vegetable, which are up by 12-fold, 12 times the amount than what we were consuming over 100 years ago. And so the interesting thing about cholesterol is that cholesterol consumption in foods has stayed about the same in the last 100 years, and cardiovascular disease has skyrocketed, but yet cholesterol has been blamed, you know, by the pharmaceutical industry anyway, for cardiovascular disease. Now, in 1900, cardiovascular disease accounted for 1 death in 7 people, but it now kills more than 1 person in 3, and only probably as late as 1980, it was about 1 person in 2. But because medical procedures have changed, it means that not everybody dies from it. And so cholesterol really, logically, when you think about it, can't be the primary cause of cardiovascular disease. But the increases have been in the diet in damaged fats, sugars, and processed foods. And so do you think we should eliminate all fats, as the product makers and media would have us believe?
No.
No.
No,
Sorry.
we need our fats.
Yeah, we do need some fat. Yeah. I don't know if you remember this advert. I'm really sorry, but I don't think the sound comes through, but you can probably get the gist of it, and you might even remember it. Isn't it a terrible advert?
Oh, God.
Anyway, moving on.
Margarine of men.
Yes. And so, like you said, fats are an important part of the diet. And so we'll have a look at fats that heal and fats that kill, and how they come about. And so saturated fats are your fats that are solid at room temperature. And we've got animal, like butter, lard, dripping, goose fat, duck fat. Then you've got your vegetable oils, such as palm oil and coconut oil, which are solid at room temperature. And the thing about saturated fats is they can be useful because they're much more stable. They don't go rancid very quickly like liquid oils, they're not as subject to heat and light deterioration, and they go rancid a lot less quickly. So then your unsaturated fats are your oils that are liquid at room temperature, and unfortunately they're a lot more or a lot less stable, and so they're better kept in dark glass, and they're very sensitive to light, heat and air. So once you've opened a bottle, that's it. It will start gradually going rancid, and the bigger the gap in the bottle, that the more subject to oxygenation it is. So some of these oils contain some of monounsaturated fats and or polyunsaturated fats. So some of them have some of each, and some of them are higher and some of them are in one thing or the other. So for example, olive oil is a mono unsaturated fat. Sunflower oil, sesame oil are polyunsaturated fats. Now, in order to stop spoilage, that's one of the reasons why manufacturers started to hydrogenate fats and make margarines out of them, because when you do that, you stop them going rancid. But it also means that it's a product that your body simply doesn't recognize. And when you heat a liquid oil, you create a product where you twist the fats in it in order to stop them going off. But those trans fats that have been twisted become carcinogenic, and it completely alters the way that the body processes. And in fact, they know that flies are totally disinterested in trans fats because they are literally the next thing back from plastic that you can make from an oil. And they do add antioxidants, of course, as well. Now, because hydrogenation got such a bad press in recent years, the industry have found a couple of other ways of solidifying liquid oils. One of them is called interesterification, and they chop up 3 fatty acids in a triglyceride and rearrange them so that they become a solid fat. And then they also fractionate them, which is a different method, and they separate out the hard stearin from palm oil, because this is used for palm oil, and then mix it with softer oils that they've esterificated. Excuse me, not being able to say the words. And there's a little diagram showing that process higher up. Now, organic production will only allow fractionation. So if you buy things like, say, organic digestive biscuits, they will most likely have fractionated palm oil in them, rather than perhaps one that's been added to something that's been interesterificated as well. But margarines still largely rely on hydrogenation and still contain trans fatty acids. So looking at essential fats, such as we mentioned, and really we want them to remain liquid in order for them to be accessible to us and health giving to us. So omega-3 you find in its whole form, without any breakdown process having taken place, in it's called alpha linolenic acid, and you find that in golden linseeds, brown linseeds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds. There's a little bit in hemp as well, hemp seeds, a little bit in your green leafy vegetables, a little bit in avocados, whereas when we consume oily fish, the fish have already broken down the omega-3 from the seafoods that they eat into EPA and DHA as well. And all of that is called prostaglandin 3, and it's a good prostaglandin because it's anti-inflammatory. Now, omega-6, the sources in the whole form of that are from sunflower and sesame seeds and hemp seeds. There's some in pumpkin seeds as well. And there is a little bit in linseeds of both kinds. And again, your liver would have to break that down. So it would need some cofactors, some other nutrients in order to do it, as it would with the omega-3. But in its broken down form of GLA, which is very accessible to the body, very digestible, you find it in two things: evening primrose oil and so-called starflower or borage oil. And then you've got a form of omega-6 called arachidonic acid, which is found in meat and dairy. Now, and I've put an arrow in the wrong place there, because the gamma-linolenic acid is an anti-inflammatory prostaglandin 1, and whereas the arachidonic acid in excess from meat and dairy can be inflammatory. But that is not to say that you don't need any arachidonic acid, because some arachidonic acid is useful, and the saturated fat that's used in your brain is arachidonic acid. As part of, sorry, I didn't say, as part of its hard structure, whereas DHA is also used alongside arachidonic acid for part of your hardware of your brain, the hard wiring of it, and EPA is used for your software, your memory, your focus, your concentration, your motivation, all of that. So essential fats are literally essential to life because we can't make them from other foods. So ideally, we have to get them from sources like oily fish or the seeds. And what they realise now with the research that's gone on is that behavioural and learning difficulties in children are very much associated to a lack of essential fats. So we really need them for good health and natural anti-inflammatory processes in the body, so that we aren't getting inflamed everywhere. And they're required for several other biological processes as well, very short-acting, quick processes like managing blood sugar and managing blood pressure. So they don't just act as a fuel, they also are found in the membrane of every single cell in your body. And if you only have saturated fats in the cell, that cell will be very rigid and solid. And you need essential fats to help the membrane be flexible. So until the 1850s, there was roughly a 1-to-1 ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, and a lot less inflammation in the body. The cancer rates were far, far lower then than they are now. Heart disease was far, far lower. And all of that started to change with the Industrial Revolution, so that we've now got a ratio of roughly 1 omega-3 to 20 omega-6 fats in the modern diet. And it's something that the body hasn't evolved to cope with. Also, there's a lot lower ratio of essential fats in the animals that people eat, because animals that are grass-fed form omega-3 fats in their meat, whereas animals that are fed a processed diet don't get the right levels of omega-3, and so they get higher omega-6 from the foods, and that increases the omega-6 fats in their meat. And so one way of looking at unsaturated fats and saturated fats in terms of the blood is that saturated fats create stickiness in the blood, whereas unsaturated fats will thin the blood and create an ability for it to flow, because it will spread the little blood cells out instead of making them clump together. I'll leave that
We'd
one.
like them to flow like oil.
Yeah. So
Especially around my knee.
yes, yeah, absolutely. So looking at foods containing essential fats and why else they're so useful and what a deficiency contributes to. So we've had a quick mention of, oh, I left out chia seeds, there you go. Sources of omega-3, golden linseeds are better than brown because they have generally higher levels of omega-3 than brown linseeds. Brown can fluctuate a bit. Walnuts are great. They even look like little brains, and it's your brains that need plenty of omega-3. Pumpkin seeds, green leafy veg is a great source. Chia seeds are nice. You can include those in the diet, just making sure that you soak them before eating them. And then avocados have a little bit as well. And then the oily fish that contains it, it's quite a variety. And your smaller ones are useful as well, like your sardines and pilchards, if you eat fish. Mackerel is very high, as is tuna. And even little sprats are a good source. So omega-6, you've got things like sesame and hemp and sunflower, as we said. Pine nuts have got some omega-6 in, and pistachio nuts as well. Omega-9, a lot of peanuts now are lower in saturated fats. They tend to be growing particular varieties that are higher in omega-9 than they are in saturated fats. Then you've got, of course, your olive oil. Almonds, cashews and pecans are a nice source of omega-9, but you don't need omega-9, because if you've got omega-3 and omega-6 coming in, you can make all of the others, ideally, if you've got them in the right ratio. So essential fats help you make something called prostaglandins, and they're very short-lived substances that are hormone-like. So they have some really useful jobs. They regulate your blood pressure, they regulate blood clotting if needed, they help reduce inflammation in the body, help improve fertility and conception, so hugely important for that, and about particularly now when about 1/3 of all pregnancies is man-made, as it were. And they help the body to fight infection, so help your immunity. Now, if we don't have enough omega-3, there are certain foods and substances that will be craved by the body and the brain because they stimulate the opiate receptors in the brain, and they temporarily help you feel good. So any caffeine, you know, coffee, tea, the same family as caffeine, chocolate. Sugar will stimulate the opiate receptors. Wheat has the same effect. Smoking, alcohol, and any of the hard drugs also. So particularly when teenagers are going through their sort of 13 to 19 and coming up to 13, you've got the frontal brain developing and the reproductive system. And that means that there's a huge draw on your essential fats at that time. And so if there aren't enough of those in the body, then there'll be cravings for alcohol, chocolate, whatever, caffeine. And if you know, a young person tries hard drugs, it can be quite difficult for them to get off them. There's no judgment around these cravings because basically the human body and human brain simply wants to feel good. That's, you know, and they'll find any way that they can in order to do that. So your cells need essential fats because you use them in the membrane to hold the cell bit innards inside, a little bit like your skin does for you, and they form a particular shape in the membrane, which is really useful for what they call cell signaling. So it allows your neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, your feel-good neurotransmitters, to dock into the right place. You need it for healthy tissues and organs. It increases your oxidation and metabolic rate when needed. So your energy levels can rise. You've got higher stamina with essential fats, and you've got a recovery time from exercise that is much faster. And also, in every area where you have mucus-lined mucosa, like the digestive system, your eyes, your vagina, any of those mucus-lined tracts in the body have tiny little goblet cells in them that produce mucus that help keep everything moist. And also, we use them in the skin to help improve skin moisturization. So if the skin's dry, and also, you know, as we're getting older, then it's partly due to the body's ability to hold, or the skin's ability to hold water in itself. And the essential fats can reduce and heal conditions like acne, eczema, and psoriasis if they're brought in the right ratios. And your digestive system can form a strong membrane that helps stop leaky gut, helps stop proteins that are too large, like gluten and casein from wheat and dairy, getting through holes in the gut, which are contributing to allergies, autoimmune problems, and more inflammation in the body. And then you've got your heart. You need the essential fats to transport cholesterol. You need them to lower triglycerides in the body, which are a broken down fat found in the body, and can sometimes be made from excess sugars. And it helps make platelets less sticky so that your blood flows, as we were saying, and lowers blood pressure. But emotionally, essential fats are lovely because they can help you feel naturally happy. They lift your mood, they ease depression, and they also help us cope with stress naturally, because then the membranes in your brain are more flexible. So when the membranes in your brain are made of saturated fats and they're more rigid, we tend to be more anxious, and we tend to be less flexible in our nature so that when a stress event pops up, we're less able to cope with it. And they did some studies also when they were looking at where EPA and DHA, the broken down forms of omega-3, were mostly used. And they found that DHA didn't really lower depression if it was separated out from EPA. It was the EPA that made people feel good, but it's the DHA that keeps the structure of your brain whole. So that you can imagine when they've looked at brains with Alzheimer's and dementia, they've found that the structural holes that are starting to form are because of a lack of DHA. So essential fats also help stabilize your heartbeat and prevent you from getting too fast a heartbeat. With your brain, they're needed for learning and help children understand so that they behave. You know, when children are running around like nutcases, it's usually because they haven't got enough essential fats to keep the brain calm and understanding what it needs to understand, so that they can focus on something and learn new things. And so also essential fats are hugely affect your own creativity, your motivation, and all of the lovely factors that help us really have a bit of passion about something. You know, our get up and go will come from them. They also help you transport minerals, like calcium, for example, especially for helping to keep your bones and teeth strong. And so they help prevent damage to the DNA inside the nucleus of every cell in your body, because they protect the membranes around your DNA. And why do they help with inflammation? Well, it's not so much that you're kind of oiling the joints, for example, but that you are creating your own anti-inflammatory chemicals that will help keep inflammation in the body low in conditions like arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Babies need essential fats just as much as adults. For the first 3 months of life, the visual system in their eyes is still developing. So the point at which avoiding glasses is kind of really crucial is those first 3 months of life, and getting, you know, the right essential fats for mum so that they can come through the breast milk for the baby and help the visual cortex develop properly just at that age. But we need essential fats for our visual system right through life. So to keep your, you know, if you've got to a certain stage with your prescription, for example, for vision, to help keep it continuously without deteriorating, it's a good idea to include essential fats for vision. And they did a study with down in Bristol called the Avon Longitudinal Study or something, and they had a look at seafood for and fish, or, you know, fish consumption amongst mothers, and they found that if mothers consumed more than what was recommended by the Advisory Nutrition Board from the government of 1200 milligrams a week, 1200 grams, 1200 milligrams, 1200 grams, if they consumed more than that, that the children by the age of 5 had greater learning abilities and speech development. And also, they found that depressive disorders and also postnatal depression were much lower where there was a greater consumption of seafood. So Iceland, with the greatest consumption of seafood, has virtually no depression. Whereas places like Hungary, Switzerland, Germany, lower levels of essential fat consumption had the highest rates of depression. So also essential fats, because they're needed in the cell membranes, they literally help hold your water inside your cells. And, you know, if you think about a liquid oil, if you poured it into water, it would come up after a moment or two and just sit around the outside of the water like a membrane, if you can imagine that in 3D. And just a quick look at processed and damaged fats like margarines, such as you find in things like deep fried food, like, you know, Kentucky Fried or McDonald's. No nutritional benefits, but unfortunately several disease potential problems. And so the difficulty is that these companies can create a longer shelf life. They can make the product cheaper because of the longer shelf lives, but it increases the health risks. So hydrogenated fats, trans fats, interesterified, fractionated, artificially saturated and twisted fats, you twist them and you create a carcinogen. So they do unfortunately act like saturated fats in the body, and they're hugely linked to heart disease. And they unfortunately, even if you eat some lovely essential fats, let's say some mackerel, but then if you'd cooked it in something like margarine, then you've created a situation where the margarine will block up the uptake of the lovely omega-3 from the mackerel. But so that's mainly a huge concern as well for children and their development, because it interferes with the metabolism of the cell and can even damage brain and nerve cell membranes. And of course, all of that is developing at a huge rate in childhood. So it can also raise blood cholesterol and raise your bad cholesterol levels and reduce your good cholesterol levels, because it's the LDL cholesterol that is carting fats around of any kind, whether it be good or bad. And also you're reducing that ability to have the natural anti-inflammatories come in from your essential fats. And like the hydrogenated fats, your trans fats interfere with cell metabolism. They're linked to a decrease in testosterone, particularly in men, of course, and that means that abnormal sperm production has become a norm. They're linked to prostate disease, obesity, depression of the immune system, and hugely to diabetes as well, because first of all, before diabetes, you generally start to get a fatty liver picture, and then the liver can't manage to process sugars correctly. So unfortunately, with trans fats, the foods last longer, and every time they're eaten, the cravings for them increase. But our memory doesn't improve, even though the memories of the cravings do. But this is a quote from Michael Schmidt. And if we sort of put a drain plug in your big toe and drained all the fat out of your body, it would cover about 10 football pitches. So it would look like an oil slick spread out over a huge distance, and a little bit like an oily puddle, really, if it was wet grass or something. But that oil slick from your cell membranes would consist of the fat molecules of anything you'd eaten over the past days to weeks to months. So whether that's coming from salad oils, mayonnaise, seeds, nuts, butter, lard, steak, fish, chips, any fats that you've eaten over the last history, as it were. And so some of those oils will create a really lovely membrane and some of them not. But that is not to say that you do not need some saturated fats in the membrane, because you do need a proportion. So he also says, the actual structure of your cells, like the stones of a palace, are based on what you put in your mouth.
Very
Very interesting. Do you think that you should take sort of like organic trout oil as a supplement?
Trout oil is a nice source of omega-3, and I think if it's from wild trout rather than farmed, then that's going to be a good source.
Yes, yeah. How much would you think you would take? Really, take some in the morning and at night, you think?
Is it 1,000 milligram capsule you've got, or
No, I've
500,
got a bottle of trout oil.
Oh, bottle of trout oil. Do you know?
So
how
I
much-
have a teaspoon.
Well, I'll tell you what. Shall we look at the bottle on Monday
Yeah, okay.
and see how much
Yeah.
DHA and EPA it's got in it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
I am pretty good, really. I haven't had margarine for years. I never really liked it. And I do sort of mainly cook with coconut oil and a bit of water, really. Occasionally olive oil, which I know I shouldn't, but cook with it. But yeah, I'm not bad with oils, really.
No, it's.
I'm like you, Anne. I use the coconut oil for cooking, for oil pulling in the morning, and then for cooking.
Yeah. Do you know what the problem is? It's with the kids. I mean, all these foods like McDonald's and pizzas, they're all so Moorish.
Yeah, well, that's the idea.
The kids are eating them. I mean, I just dread to think what their life expectancy is going to be, because they eat all these chips and goodness knows what, all the time. And you can't control 19 and 18-year-olds.
Oh, no. Well,
you can put good food on the table, and then later, I mean, my one grandson will eat that. He'll have salmon and vegetables and, a baked potato, and then next thing, the pizza man's there with a pizza and a big thing of ice cream. I mean, just horrendous, really. But anyway. Hopefully they will start to learn,
There's a
you can control younger children's diets, but you can't control, teenagers, especially older teenagers. And as I say, these deliveries on the island, I mean, it's continual, I mean, you see them all the time delivering rubbish to all these houses,
We didn't have that when we were younger, did we?
Well, that was a fortunate thing. We weren't tempted because we didn't have anything other than organic food until the 50s. I mean, and certainly where I live, we didn't have any supermarkets, and we only had one place you could buy drink, and he knew everybody in the village. So our naughtiness was cigarettes. We all smoked,
Mm.
and but we
I-
didn't drink.
I
We
did-
didn't drink like they drink now.
Yeah.
They're terrible drinkers. Shots, have a few shots. God. But they've got access to so much more, so much temptation. Really, that's the problem. And I should say, the temptation is very addictive.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, it's thinking about if the essential fats are there, then the cravings come down.
Yeah.
And
You
the body is
explain
more sort
somehow.
of satisfied as well. It's more satiated with that. And I think,
Well, one grandson's quite good. In fact, he won't have he won't carry a mobile phone because he's convinced that's going to injure him, and he drinks water, and he's very good about fruit and vegetables. But the other one's dreadful, and they come from the same background, and
yeah.
so I don't know what you do. I think it must be very hard for parents to bring children up healthily now.
Mm.
Because we just never had these things, did we? We never.
No.
Mother made scones or a cake. You didn't have, and it was all fresh stuff, We just didn't buy things.
There's a lot
There
of
weren't
peer pressure.
supermarkets, were there?
Mm.
There's a lot. What, Susie?
A lot of peer pressure on them, isn't
Oh
there?
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit like, they probably will go through the phase. And I mean, some of them,
Yeah.
I think, but I do feel there is a new wave of consciousness. I mean, especially, what they look at and what sort of
Yes.
having, they didn't have, but they have had fast food, not that, maybe they've bought it on their own account. We wouldn't have bought much for them ourselves. But I think, they get a stage, then they become quite conscious about what it is they're putting inside their body. But, and then they'll have a blip, but then they might try and be healthy again, like most of us. But
Yeah. We hope so.
I guess the body can, get healthy again if it's been abused to be on the right track. Is that right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not lost. What I'm saying, if they suddenly decide to get healthy, it'll all be all right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, do you remember that guy who did Super Size Me? Did you see that film?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I think they found that some of the damage that had been done by his month on McDonald's took a very long time to recover from.
I don't know this.
It's on Netflix. I think it's an old film, but it's very good. And he lives off McDonald's for 2 months or 3 months, something.
Was it
as
that long? Oh, right. I was thinking it was a month. Yeah.
I maybe it was only a month
Yeah.
or two. I thought it was a bit longer, but he was
might be
kind of quite a healthy guy, tall, young, maybe healthy, and then he did this experiment. Yes, he wrote a book and he made a film, and then he got sued by McDonald's because he mentioned McDonald's in not complimentary terms. He just only ate at McDonald's for the whole period of time.
Oh my God.
And they sued him, but eventually I think they backed off. But I mean, you can imagine the might of McDonald's suing you as a individual, the pressure that would put on you. But anyway, he was the kind of person, I think he must have been having the omega oils because he wasn't under pressure.
Yeah.
He was having filets of fish.
Was that Michael Mosley?
No.
No,
No, much
Steven
better looking.
Spurlock or something. He had some funny name. He was American, something with S, Spurlock or something like
yes,
this.
was it Morgan Spurlock?
I don't know. It was something funny name with S involved in it. I don't pretend. I mean, I've just seen the film, but it's an interesting film.
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
Super. I'd like
Super Size Me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And does he come out with does he say like this isn't good? I mean, Or
Oh yeah, he feels
right.
worse and worse as time goes on.
Yes, but he's
Yeah.
monitored all the
And
time.
he puts an enormous amount of weight on, his heart stats and his cholesterol. Yeah, he's really in a bit of a state by the end of the month
Right.
or time period. I can't remember. Sorry, I can't. You might be right. It might be a lot longer.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it made him as a, okay, it maybe took a while to
Minor
get over it, but
celebrity.
it made him money, and it made
Mm.
him as a, you know,
Yeah.
I think when you go to America, the sizing's absolutely, you can't
portion
believe what
size,
the
yes.
amount of
Even I
food
think the
they put in
portions are big.
front of you. I mean, there's
The
enough
bags of
food for about
crisps,
4 people.
crisps.
I know,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and they have this fantastic, they have the wine in 1.5 liter bottles. It's
Yeah.
Only need to carry one home.
just have half a bottle each.
Oh dear. It's yes, they do everything big, don't they? I understand. Yeah.
You know, there was one of the slides said, you know, tuna fresh.
Yes.
So, you know, sardines, or, you know, we tend to have them in tins because I mean,
Yeah.
Me too.
now is that okay? Because you know,
That's a really good question. Because
I was thinking I'm on my, oh no.
You know.
I mean, obviously fresh is best. One of the things that I think is true is that say salmon, sardines, pilchards, there will be a little bit in the canned. Tuna is much less likely, because I think it's often the tuna canneries that some of the oil for supplements is collected. And so when you get a can of tuna, you'll often find it will either say rich in omega-3 or it won't. And if you get the ones that say they have omega-3 in, then they probably actually do, and they've probably actually taken it out and added it back in, or
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure, but I think that's probably true. So yes, much less likely. But if you've got fish oil, you can always pour a little bit of, you know, sneak it into for a child's diet. If anybody knows any young children they want to sneak some fish oil in.
But do you get the fish oil in a bottle?
Yes.
I never heard of trout oil. When I was younger, we had cod liver oil.
I'll
Yes.
show you the bottle. I'll go and get it.
But
thank
that
you.
might be a process. I have no idea. You know, I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. I never heard of trout oil in my life. But
Heard of it, but I bought some lovely wild caught salmon, tuna and whitefish from frozen from Costco's the other week.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I could quite eat it every day.
and what about krill oil? Is this fish oil?
It's a seafood rather than fish, but yes, it is. Oh, thank you. Sorry, does it say what the DHA and EPA content is per spoonful, Anne?
Be all on the back, won't it? Fresh and pure, full spectrum oil, eco-friendly, certified organic. Ingredients: organic Scandinavian rainbow trout. This product contains fish. Oh, here's, yeah. It's DHA, it's total omega-3, and that's DHA something acid, 170, EPA 150, DPA 50, ALA 120. Then it's total omega-6, 561 milligrams, omega and linoleic acid 465, GLA, gamma linoleic acid 5, other omega-6 fatty acids 91, omega-7 340, omega-9 279. So yes, it seems to have all the
Got the
omegas.
Could I
Yeah.
just ask, is that per teaspoon?
Oh gosh, what I'm looking at that. It says approximately, oh wait a moment, approximately 40 teaspoons per 200 milliliter bottle. Each 5 milliliter teaspoon typically provides what I said. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
that's it.
And so, yes.
I
you
have
could-
a teaspoon in the morning, but I wondered whether I should have a teaspoon at night to keep the old brain going.
You could have another
Yeah,
teaspoon.
I think I
yes.
might
How
do that.
palatable is it, Anne?
Pardon?
How palatable is it? Is it tasty or is it?
It's lovely. It's got orange and lemon in it.
Oh, to
So
keep it
it's nice.
fresh.
Yes, quite nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in organically controlled inland waters, no chemicals or industrial refining, naturally free from heavy metals. Yeah, well, they say they're everything, but who knows? They can say anything they like, can't they? Really?
And how much
Is it in a glass bottle or a plastic
Yeah,
bottle?
it's a glass bottle. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have the flax oil and the fish oil
Yeah.
from Citan. Yeah.
Yeah.
What other oils could you take like that? Because I see things like different kind of nut oils and things. Are any of them any good?
Yes, in moderation.
Okay.
Like, with salad oils.
Okay.
The thing about the cold pressed extra virgin olive oil is that it's not complete. It's the full benefit isn't necessarily just the fact that it's an oil. It's the fact that it's very, very high in antioxidants. And they've realized that that's one of the main benefits of olive oil. So it's kind of being careful with the amount. But for example, the longevity guy, Volta Longo, reckons that you could take about 3 tablespoons of olive oil daily with, use that in your food sort of intake during the day, because they've found that it is one that is beneficial from the point of view of it's not one that is going to be inflammatory, should I say. It's
I don't fully understand this inflammatory thing. Is the inflammation in your blood, or is it in your liver, or is it everywhere?
It's a cellular inflammation. And so it starts to malform your cells in that they would have a lot more tendency to carcinogenesis, and angiogenesis, that they're able to remodel themselves, proliferate very quickly, that there's a lot of heat in the area, because often you find anywhere that's inflamed, whether it be a joint, whether it be a muscle that's inflamed, you'll get a lot of heat and swelling there. And the inflammation is partly contributed to by the wrong kind of fat, because there's the wrong kind of fat in your cell makeup.
Yeah.
And if that's happening particularly at a DNA level, it's not protecting the DNA, then that cell is unable to replicate in a healthy way.
So you get things like arthritis, don't you? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's an unfortunate thing where you've got deterioration of the joint, and then you've also got inflammatory substances around it,
Mm.
because it's a weak area in the body.
Right, okay.
But do you know, you've made me think I really must go away and have a look and come back and describe inflammation more clearly, because that's a terrible explanation.
No, I'm just, I hear it all the time, inflammation, but I honestly don't, I know what an inflamed cut is, but I'm wondering where is this inflammation? You know, is it all over you, or is it in your joints, or, you know?
It's partly able to occur because of the wrong environment. So the more acid the pH in the body, the more damaged fats in the cells, the more able the more your body will produce bacteria and viruses within that environment. It's a little bit like thinking about the environment of the gut being out, the pH of the gut being out. And so your bad bacteria are able to proliferate instead of your good. So exactly the same thing happens in the body. So the inflammation is contributed to by bacterial infection, by viral infection, or viral activity, bacterial activity, fungal activity. Just if you got a fungal toenail and it became really red and inflamed around that, for example, it's due to the fact that you've got substances that are coming into the body that are making your body want to throw some of those wastes out through the skin, because you've created heat and too much heat and inflammation there. The inflammation is it's a natural reaction, really. But the more out of kilter your fats, your pH, your hydration is, the more of it you create. I lost Anne there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, where'd she go?
Does that
Sometimes
make
I know she goes a bit earlier, she kind of leaves, but she usually says I'm
She
going.
usually says goodbye. She probably thought Susie's never going to stop going on about inflammation and she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Oh dear, no.
Sorry,
Sorry, that's
so yeah, it's always a combination of factors.
Okay.
And
Well, it's really, Susie, if you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out, don't you?
yes, you get rubbish trying to burst out all
Yeah,
over the place.
it's got to come out. It wants to escape somewhere. So
it does. So
yeah.
even, you know, a boil is inflammation. A
Yeah.
spot is inflammation.
Yeah.
Some of it is just, you know, has a lot of heat behind it, and something like, you know, when somebody gets a spot and they say it just hangs around, it doesn't go. That would be, you know, a classic sort of bit of inflammation. But you asked me about krill oil, and I'm really sorry I didn't answer your question. Krill oil is highly absorbable form of omega-3, and also very, very useful if you know, if you want to take krill instead of fish oil.
I took it before. I don't see so much of it now, but I do see it. But I didn't know it's quite expensive. I remember it was expensive, but I took it once or twice because I was told it was good, but then I stopped taking it because I didn't know if it was really, you know, I didn't know if it was good or not. Yes. Sometimes things are a fashion, aren't they? Or you know,
they are. I mean, krill has a reputation for really helping to open cell membranes, that's the only thing about it. It is very expensive, and so one of the things that you can do is to add it to, you know, have
You
some-
went off, you know, did you know that?
No,
No,
you went
broke-
off.
We did.
No,
We
Yeah,
lost
no,
you.
it absolutely froze. You all froze. You were all like this.
that was you, Anne, not
It was
us.
you, we were
It
all
had
here.
froze. Oh, well, it must be the Wi-Fi here. It's not so good. Anyway.
It's windy tonight. It could be.
Yeah, well,
affecting.
it's very windy here where
Mm.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Liz, I
Yeah.
get krill oil from Cytoplan
Okay.
when you get 3 for the price of 2.
Okay. mhm.
That's when I buy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sometimes they had it in Boots and you could get it for 3 for the price of 2, you know, at one point,
Yeah.
but I'm near a
Mm.
Boots now. But this is a few years ago. I was just wondering,
Yeah.
you know, was it something, because sometimes I know things are like a fashion or something and they're
Yeah.
not really that good at all.
Mm.
I've
You
been
need to keep them refrigerated.
Yeah.
I keep this in the refrigerator because,
Mm.
you know, it does go off very quickly, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
So do you keep the krill oil tablets and
No, I don't
Pri-
take krill oil. I only take
That's
this
okay.
oil. Yeah,
The-
yeah.
the primrose oil and the krill oil in tablets in the fridge then, Susie?
Keep evening primrose oil and borage in a cool, dark place.
Right, yeah,
Mm.
that's where I keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Anyway, I think I'll have to leave you anyway because I've been changing beds and hoovering and I'm shattered. So I'm going to have my oil and go to bed, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks very much for everything and nice to see you all.
Nice to see
Yeah.
you too.
You, yes.
Keep
Lovely
keep
to
on
see
the
you.
good fats, right?
Yeah.
Reject the bad ones.
Yeah.
See you.
Okay,
I
bye.
suddenly thought they're all frozen, you know. And then you went off completely.
No.
Yeah.
We thought
Bye.
we
Thank
thought
you.
you'd
Bye.
gone, or you've gone now.
And what
Um,
about things like walnut oil and pumpkin seed oil? Because I also see all of these kind of things, but I
Mm.
don't know if you can cook with them. I think probably not, but do you just take them on salad or something?
They're intended for salads.
Okay.
And they do give a nice flavour to salad dressings.
Mm.
Whether to use them or not. It's one of those things where you it's sort of everything in moderation. So you could combine them with a little bit of you could use them with a combination of a good quality olive oil and
Okay.
have a little bit of the nut oil.
Mm.
It's thin vegetable oils really that are they don't have such a good reputation, and they are what has increased. But it's often things like, not that, you know, the nice nut and seed oils, but rapeseed oil, sunflower oil is used too much.
Okay.
And where you've got one like walnut, where you've got some omega-3 there, then that is not going to be such a bad thing. Your pumpkin seed oil is not going to be
Okay.
such a bad thing.
Normally I'm using olive oil, but I
Mm.
just see these other things and I'm wondering,
Yes.
are they better? Because they're quite expensive and I
They
have
are.
tasted them. I
Mm.
tried hemp oil as a kind of a salad dress, but it was too disgusting. So, you know, and I tried it and I thought, no.
Yeah.
And I tried mixing with olive oil and thought, no.
Yes,
And that's
It-
probably,
it's true. I mean, hemp is another one, I think, that is certainly went through a very fashionable phase.
yeah.
And it is much higher in omega-6 than omega-3, so it's not a great one to put on salads, really.
Okay. Because
Um,
again, it was it was a craze,
It
you know,
was.
and I bought it
mm,
thinking this will be good for me, you know, and
Yeah.
it'll be worth the money and blah blah. But it's not nice.
no, it's not. I agree. I do agree.
So I was just wondering if there was something, you know, I have usually just have olive oil, and
Mm,
if there was then something better, you know, if there was a better one?
Not especially, no,
Okay.
not especially.
I guess
Uh,
there's a difference between the therapeutic, you know, like the one that Anne was saying, you just take a teaspoon of it. You're not particularly going to drizzle that over your salad. And then there's the oils that we do use, you know, like for a cook or when we're eating, because
mm.
I suppose it's lemon oil, or what's the one I'm on?
Oh, Lemo 3,
Lemon
yes.
three. Like
Yeah.
I take, I wouldn't be putting it on my porridge or anything. I
Yeah.
tend to eat
I
it.
That's
just-
right, yeah.
I just take a teaspoonful of that in the morning with the flaxseed oil, which is 10
Mm.
ml,
Oh,
Fine.
flax.
5 ml of the fish oil from Cytoplan, and then the flaxseed oil of 10 ml, and then at night I have another 10 ml
Really?
of
Oh, sure.
flax. Yeah,
You
I
well
don't know
oil.
whether I'm doing.
Um,
And then in the morning I have krill oil as well. I'm quite oily.
Ah,
So is that too much, Susie?
well, I don't tend to recommend flax oil as much these days. Maybe a dessert spoon.
Just in the morning, not at night then?
Yes, it's thinking about the fact that if you take in the complete oil, and that is the same for walnut, it's pumpkin,
Mm.
it's flax oil, your body has got to use B3, B6, vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium and zinc in order to break it down.
Right.
Whereas the fish oil, that's already happened for you. That's
Mm.
done. And so you take it and your liver can do something with it immediately.
Right. So I'll cut the evening one at the 10 ml in the evening out.
And
Well,
have
what you
trout
could
oil
do,
instead.
Jeannie, is cut it out and see what you notice, because
Mm.
there are some people who notice that that, you know, if they take, one of the things with omega-3 is that not everybody needs the same amount.
Mm.
And one thing to do is to maybe up it little by little, if it's only half a teaspoon at a time, and see, for example, if somebody's got cravings, when do the cravings stop?
Mm.
You know, if that's what you want to work with. For some people, omega-3 can really switch off that busy brain that they get, you know, where the mind is just too busy at night. And so it can be very useful to calm the mind. And so it's getting to the stage where, well, how much is it that it takes to make my mind feel calm?
No.
So, you know, I then sleep.
Mm.
This is something to watch out for.
Mm.
So it entirely depends on the person. You know, with inflammation, what is it that takes to switch the arthritic pain off?
Mm.
And in, you
But
know,
is arthritis inherited, or is it created, or is it a bit of both? My mother has very bad arthritis. So obviously I think, God, if it's inherited, I'm stuffed.
that's a really good question. And no, it isn't. In, you know, the genetic picture is there for calcium misplacement. So yes, that can come through the generations, but then it depends whether you eat the same way as your mum did or does. You know, if you eat an entirely different way, then you're going to get an entirely different story
Okay.
of health.
Okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be.
In other words, you don't inherit it if you have the right diet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
Do oils help then with your joint? Because you know, if you have muscles, are they then oiling them? Is it like a machine? Is that how it works?
No, what it does is it reduces the inflammatory prostaglandins that you produce. So there are some prostaglandins that are great, and there are some prostaglandins that you can produce if you've got far too much saturated fat coming in. Let's say like that guy who was eating McDonald's all day, he would start to produce a lot of inflammatory prostaglandins, which would start to irritate the joints, start to irritate the skin and cause inflammation. I think he was didn't he have lots of rashes? I can't remember, Liz. He started to come out in rashes, I think. And,
Yeah, I can't remember. I just remember they said that he had a fatty liver and they were checking his heart, and
yeah,
it was his internal organs that were damaged, is the wrong word, but were impacted first, so you didn't see it. They were checking the blood level and all of this kind of thing. So he looked the same on the outside, but then gradually he obviously got fatter and fatter. But I think at first you didn't see anything, but there was definitely changes inside.
And his skin did look terrible, didn't it?
Yeah.
But there was a guy, a doctor, I think he was a doctor, Nathan Pritikin. You might have heard of him. But he advocated a vegan diet because he got fatty liver and he got cardiovascular disease I think he was probably only in his 40s. And he switched to a vegan diet, but then he cut out fat completely. And in his 60s, he committed suicide because he got leukemia. But they did an autopsy on him when he was dead, and his arteries were completely clear, whereas in his 40s, they'd been absolutely bunged up with crappy fat. But he'd gone to the opposite extreme of not eating any fat.
And he didn't have then these omega-3 things, obviously.
No, that's right, because they are anti-cancer forming.
Why did he do that? Was it just...
Well, because that was what his research
oh, right. He was...
proved, he managed to heal himself from
I can imagine him, but what we a vegan diet, but then to go the extreme of cutting out fat completely.
But I mean, in a vegan diet, you have oils because you have all these nut oils and
well, that's really interesting, actually, because
avocados and all this malarkey.
I don't know if you've seen people like Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. There's also T. Colin Campbell, who wrote the China study. And they tend to advocate as little fat as possible. So they're not even keen on people using olive oil. And so, they say, by all means, eat nuts and seeds. But they are very minimal on fat.
But would you get enough oil from, say, nuts and seeds?
Possibly. I think it would be good to, for example, one of the things they do say is to grind a tablespoon of flax seeds every morning and include them on your breakfast. But then you're back to, well, how efficiently is my liver breaking it all down? Because particularly with men, where estrogen is actually helpful to essential fatty acid breakdown from flaxseed oil, but testosterone is actually a blocker to omega-3 breakdown from flax oil. And so I often say to men, I've even said to vegan men, do you think you could take some fish oil? Because you are not going to break flax oil down as well as a woman would.
Interesting.
And even we have small amounts of testosterone. So,
and I guess around the menopause, that all goes.
Well, yes, they all lessen, but it's thinking about, particularly with teenage boys, their testosterone levels are sky high. So there's no way that you want to be giving them flax oil, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
'cause
they moan at me, but they do take their oils.
they do. That's good. Yeah.
Hmm. Not again. Yeah, again.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah.
They're blessed to have somebody like you looking after them.
Well, now, although yes, I guess. Well, you know, because obviously you should see the counter. You know, it does look like Cytoplan and day. You know, like,
Yeah.
and which one do I take now? I said, well, just do D, and then back to school, and then come down to that. Yeah.
I mean, what was I going to say about teens as well? Sometimes the easiest way with teens is to appeal to what is important to them. So if it's skin, if it's appearance, if it's weight, you know, if there's something they're worried about, very often you can appeal to them in some way. Well, look, if you do this, this will help. But
That's funny because you took. Well, she saw Roisin, my daughter, and she comes down. She says, "Oh, I'm very bloated. I must have taken too much sodium in. I really don't know how much." Here's some tea. Off you go. Yeah, they do learn, and I think that's the thing. It's sort of they know that, you know, maybe that ramen, whatever that I thought was going to be okay, you know, just doesn't suit me. But you know, they'll try it again. But at least they know that they actually are starting to listen to their bodies, and it's interesting, really.
yeah, yeah. No, my daughter only said to me this evening. She said, "Mum, I've got tender boobs." She said, "Why is that?" So I said, "Well, are you due on?" So she says, "Well, not for about a week." So I said, "Oh, well, it's usually sodium causing a bit of swelling and discomfort." She says, "Oh, I've been eating too many crisps." Because her boyfriend's here and they've been snacking.
Yeah.
So yeah, she knows, you know, and yeah.
That's the thing. All the learning.
Mm.
What we're all doing.
Yeah, we never stop learning, do
No,
we?
that's
No.
good.
I
Yeah, me
always say
too.
the day you stop learning is the day you die.
Definitely, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Are you saying then at the beginning, you said we were eating a lot more fat? That was then obviously a bad thing, right? Because in the first few slides, you said between 1911 or something, you know,
Yes.
and you had a little diagram of children that were all getting fatter. It's not, you know.
Well, the thing is, it's that we've totally changed the type of fat that we're eating. And so, you know, you could look back, you know, there's a lot of sort of discussion about how bad things like lard and dripping are because they're saturated fat. But people were eating those right up to 1910.
Yeah.
And, you know, I used to work, I used to go and do reflexology in a nursing home. And there was a 95-year-old lady, I think. And the owner was saying to me one day, "Oh, she's as bright as a button, you know." And he said, she has beef dripping on her toast every single day. She loves it. And I was kind of like, oh, wow, you know, and it's sort of, it's not necessarily those kind of fats that are the biggest issue. And so I say to people, you know, when they say to me about fish and chips, you know, I say, well, go to a fish and chip shop that cooks their chips in something like dripping or lard, because they are stable at high temperatures. And when they're using them again and again and again like that and heating them, you want to know that you're, you know, if you're going to have fish and chips, you might as well have some that's been cooked in a fat that's very stable than the ones, the shops that cook them in vegetable fat, which is not meant to be heated like that and will be twisting and carcinogenic. So it's sort of thinking the fats that people used to use for cooking would have been a lot healthier than what people are encouraged to use now.
Because they were less processed, maybe.
Yeah, those ladies, that lady probably, because I remember as a kid, it was only the fat that you know, it was taken off the top of things that you actually used
Yeah.
again. A bit
Yeah.
like, you know, it was no shelf life it did go off, so you had to either use it and get rid of it. So I probably was the healthier way, but yeah, we don't do that now, do we, really, particularly? But yeah.
No.
Because I suppose like gravy, you know,
Yes,
would be-
people would make it from the juices
And-
of meat.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it makes
Thicken
such a
cream.
difference. What's that, sorry?
And thicken it with cream, just for good measure.
Yes, indeed. Well, you know, I saw some, the consumption of cream has gone down enormously as well, along with butter. But consumption of cheese, I think, has gone up like 8-fold or something. You know,
And why is that? I mean, Mike, I eat a lot of cheese, but why is that? Or do they know? Or just cheese became more popular? I don't know.
well, partly because of the foods that are on offer.
Pizza.
You know, and available to buy, you know, and there's such a wide range of cheeses now.
Yes.
You know,
yeah.
people, they put everything in them, like cranberries and I don't know, apricots and
Yeah.
you know, people are like, try a bit of that. And it's, you know, there are so many blue cheeses and stinky cheeses and
Yes.
yeah.
And you think maybe there wasn't, maybe there was just cheddar or something.
Yes, there was local specialties, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And now Red Leicester, I think, has a number of things in it, and cheddar has pickle in it, and
Yeah.
And we get cheeses from everywhere.
Yes.
You know, they come in from France and Holland and Spain and.
Yeah, we don't think about maybe how much, like yogurt is the other thing. I saw a program about the introduction of yogurt into the UK and Ireland. It was ski yogurt because they said the Alpine, the Swiss invented or developed yogurt, but it had no sugar in it. It was just
fermented milk.
Yes, you know, whatever, and they had it and they added grains and fruit, and that was muesli, you know, and Berkshire muesli, I think, and that was what they ate, and they were all still alive up in the mountains and everything. And then this guy thought this could be an idea, but of course, for the British market, he added sugar and sweetener. And the ski, he called it ski, which I think might be gone now because they said there was such a healthy atmosphere with all the Swiss skiing up and down the mountains, and it was like fit and healthy. It was about being fit. And then they're saying now, if you look at the amount of yogurt, and they were right, you know, there's every kind of yogurt, good and bad for you, and cheesy ones and almond ones and this and that and the other. And I can remember when yogurt came in and nobody kind of knew what it was and what did you do with it, and you know.
No, you're right. I think it was in our childhood, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he made money because they just said it created a whole new industry that didn't exist. And I think in Switzerland now, I'm sure they had yogurt as well, but you know, it came from just something that was actually in a way quite good for them, made, you know, from their products, and the cows would have been up in the mountains and they'd have been eating grass and, you know, all organic and the whole lot, but you know, like Heidi, you know, a very healthy image.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there is a lot of sugar in some yogurts, isn't there?
Yeah, but it's all sweetened, and this was for the UK market, you know, that basically if you added sugar to it, that was the key.
Yes, and I think you're right that this is where things, like the sugar sneaking in and everything, and of course make, if the body doesn't want to or can't lay it down in the cells because the cells are too high in sugar, it'll convert to triglyceride fats, and then it does store as fat.
Yeah.
So
So is there a cheese that you would recommend then, Susie? I haven't had cheese for a long time, but you're talking about it and I'm thinking, oh, I could do with a bit of
Oh, gee, we learned about that last week.
no, I'm really
Yes.
sorry, there wouldn't be a cheese I'd recommend.
Sorry.
Well, I suppose things like cottage cheese are less salty.
what the goat's cheese.
That would depend. If it was a soft one, it would probably be lower in cheese. And goats and sheep's are closer to human breast milk, of course.
No.
But no, I mean, dairy isn't something I recommend to anybody really.
Yeah.
But I think if you
So
eat,
that comes under dairy then, the sheeps and the goats.
yes, it's still dairy.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I won't buy any then. It's just it's just as you're talking about it, I thought, oh, a nice piece of goat's cheese.
Oh, I used to love cheese. Yeah.
Yeah, so did I.
It doesn't love me.
No.
Yeah. There you go. And kind of the things that I know about it would put me off anyhow.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But it's I don't know. It's one of those things where if you eat something and you don't notice that it's detrimental to you, then, and obviously these things are cumulative anyway, but that it's a personal choice. Yeah.
But if I don't buy it, it's not in the house, so I can't eat it.
No, that's true. Yeah. Well,
So what are we doing next week, Susie?
next week, I keep forgetting to look that up, don't I? Have I got it here? Yes, I've got it here. Cholesterol and nurturing gut flora.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Hmm.
Well, if you saw Prince Philip tonight, he's out of hospital. He's 99 and he's had another stent in his heart.
Ah.
So he's doing something right.
Yeah.
Well, to be able to kind of have an operation at 99.
Mm.
I'm glad Deborah's not here. I don't know what she said he was getting injected into him this morning when we met up. I thought, really? So she's told, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some
Yes.
sort of,
Well,
yes.
yes, I do know about that stuff.
Do you?
Yeah.
And is it true?
I think there's a likelihood of it.
Oh,
Yes.
God.
Zuckerberg has even mentioned it on his Twitter thread, using it.
What is it?
Adrenochrome.
What's that?
It's a adrenaline produced substance that is produced by small children if they're terrified. And if they terrify small children and then extract it from them and then inject it into adults, it creates a youthful appearance.
Like Prince Philip.
Well, not like Prince Philip. I mean, he really is ancient, but Zuckerberg still looks like a baby face.
He does. I thought that, when I saw him on the television, because he must be
Mm.
pushing 40, and he's looking, don't say he's looking good, but he's looking young,
Mm.
I never heard about this.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
horrible.
this morning either. I didn't want to know what's tomorrow. I was like,
It
no.
really is quite
That just-
revolting.
But they do it, the children out in China or something. I mean, they can't be doing that in America.
Well, there is a theory that these children are kept and stolen, particularly for that reason. It's child trafficking.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I never heard about it ever.
No. I mean, it really is.
First time I've heard about
But that
it.
can't be legal. I mean, anywhere,
possible.
you know.
No,
Not
no.
at all legal. No.
I just don't know what profile you'd have to be able to access that though. I mean, is it like just rich and famous that are able to?
It would appear to be used in Hollywood a lot. Yes.
Really?
Yes. People like Tom Hanks, they reckon, and Meryl Streep, and
Well, they're all on something. I mean, that's for sure. But I mean, I hear about people getting their blood extracted. There was some guy on the television, it's going to be on the BBC somewhere, and he's done all of these kind of treatments. Now he just said one, but they're extracting things from you and putting it back in again. You know,
yes.
Yeah. Cyclists do that a lot, don't they? Or he got found
that
out.
that is your own blood or your own fat or whatever it is, you know, if they take a fat out of your bum, you know, and put it into your face, you
Yes,
know.
that's right. It's a particular treatment, isn't it?
Yes,
And I think they
which
used it a lot for glandular fever, didn't they?
yeah, I mean, they all come from medical things, these beauty
mm.
treatments. They often come from essential things, but then you can get money, you know, if they work. But I never heard about this.
No.
Taking it from children, or I don't even know how you would do it, but anyway.
I don't like to think about it. It's
up at night time.
I think one of the things they said was that do you remember Hillary Clinton when she was running for president at the same time as Trump?
Yes.
And there was a peculiar clip of her that went around the internet where she was kind of jolting around like this.
Right. Yeah.
And it's later been mooted that she had just taken adrenochrome because it has a little bit of a hyper effect on adults.
Okay.
Because it's a child's, fear
yes.
hormone. And so she was suffering the after effects of that as she went into her interview or whatever she was doing, press conference or something. But yes, the Clintons, people like the Obamas, they reckon, but who knows? It is all
Biden, Holland and Barrett.
pretty grim. Yeah.
And where did you hear about this?
Well,
don't have to tell us if it's some dodgy website, you know.
I'm afraid I don't know how you feel about this. I mean, I have been following David Icke for about 30 years.
Oh, right, okay.
And he was brought into the media in a very...
For wearing a blue tracksuit.
For wearing a blue tracksuit, yes. But also for saying, apparently, they have a clip of him saying, I am the son of God.
Yeah.
Now, that isn't actually the only thing he said. He said,
okay.
I am the son of God. He said, we are all children of God. But they cut him off.
Yeah.
And the only bit of the interview that you saw with him was him saying, I am the son of God.
Yeah.
And they were able to write him off as a complete nutter.
Mm-hmm.
And he has written, it must be something between 6 to 10 in-depth. I mean, you might think that I go into the nitty-gritty and the detail, but David Icke knows everything from soup to nuts about politics from, I don't know, 1700s, 1800s through to now.
Yeah.
And how government has manipulated money, politics, corporations, medical substances, pharmaceutical industry, how it's all connected, how people are basically brought into a system,
Yeah.
and that wars only happen in order to reorganize populations. So World War II was about reorganizing population in a particular way. And of course, at the same time, corporations are making huge profits from arms and damaging the population, basically. And when I read his book, the first book I read of his, I thought, oh my God, well, this makes complete sense of why the way that politics is run makes no sense to me. You know, it really doesn't make any sense. And yet he did, because the way he explained it, and, you know, that it is about money, it is about the pharmaceutical industry, the armament industry, all making money. It's totally set up around control of the meager, you know, us meager plebs, the population, and extracting, you know, ways in which we can make more money for a very small 1% of the population.
Well, it's what drives the world, isn't it? Money, sex, and power, and it comes in different in different orders.
And Hollywood is just, you know, another aspect of it, because the films that are made are specifically designed to portray a way of living, or to portray an idea that they want people to take up. And so that's what comes across, you know, in Netflix and you know, Prime and all of that. And it's all very manipulated.
Yeah, it's all controlling us.
Yeah. So you know, it all made such sense to me 30 odd years ago when I read it. I went and listened to him speaking. I've listened to him speaking a few times, and he's not a raving loony.
So you think he was silenced?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, very much so. Yeah.
What nationality is he?
He's English.
Yeah.
He was a footballer first of all. Got injured, and while he was recovering from his injury, I think somebody introduced him to a medium, and he had a session, and she said that he was going to kind of become very significant in uncovering what was really happening in the world. And he sort of thought, yeah, you know.
Not me.
But gradually he's, you know, I think he started to see things and started making inquiries, and he's sort of become an extremely good investigative journalist. So really what he has uncovered is so fantastic that a lot of people have thought, you know, this, and also ever since really Kennedy was shot, that's when the term conspiracy theorist was invented.
Right.
He wanted to cover up really that he was bumped off by the powers that be, because he wanted to stop what was happening with the American currency and the way that the American population was being treated, and he was going to blow it all wide, and he wasn't allowed. And so, you know, the conspiracy theorist term was invented then, because if they can call me, you know, people like me, a conspiracy theorist, then you don't want to listen to her. And here I am being a conspiracy theorist. Sorry. But you know, I can only say that the reason I've stuck with it very quietly in my own quiet way is that it just makes such sense of what seems like utter nonsense. You know, why are there still people homeless on the streets, for God's sake? You know, when we live in such a wealthy nation, and the reason is, you know, why are there so many people living on the poverty line? And the reason is because there are a small select band of very greedy, narcissistic, controlling power
Yeah.
nutters.
Controllers.
But there always are, and there always will be. There always was.
Yes, that's true. It's true. They've been around a very long time.
You know, the Russian czars, if you go back, the pharaohs, you know, there was always this thing going on of like the elite and the.
Well, we've got COVID now, haven't we?
But the scary thing is, yes, this is just another war on the population.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not real, but they have managed to implant it because the media is so powerful.
Well, they're paid, aren't they, by the men at the top?
Yes, yes. Yeah. All of the newspapers are now funded, their advertising is funded by government.
Yeah. And Gates gives money to the BBC to tell the right stories.
Yeah.
And then they want us to live in fear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so yes, it is. Some of it is really quite revolting, like the adrenochrome.
Yeah. This I've never heard of. I know people do strange things, but this I never heard of.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it, Liz.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's plenty out there if you want to investigate it, but it's not nice at all.
No.
No,
I don't want nightmares.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a lot of things going on, and if you have money and you're desperate, and you know, when I see all of these people, they've got all of this energy. I know we're on the energy journey now, and it's all going to be marvelous. But I think, God, how are they doing this? You know, this kind of life. They must be on uppers and downers and staying thin. You know, like Jennifer Lopez, and you know, I wonder how they're doing it. You know, there's definitely.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean,
you know.
doubtless it's not. It must have come in after Elvis because he was on all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, that was a bit of a.
No, but it's always interesting. I'm always interested to hear different things because I never heard of it before.
Yeah. We'll blame it on Bridget because she brought up.
No, it wasn't. No, but when you mentioned something about.
I mentioned about Prince Philip. We were talking about hearts and cholesterol.
It's your fault, Liz.
Yeah.
About how wonderful he is, and he's good to have his 100th birthday. And you know, Debs went.
Well, it's just you were talking about cholesterol, and I was thinking he'd had a stent and he had cholesterol, and he must have had something into because of the unblock the arteries, and he's 99. And I was thinking, well, he's doing something right. You know, he's 99.
Yes. Well, I suppose you really don't want to know what David thinks. Keep that lot going. You really don't.
Well, I kind of, you know, I mean, it's it's a different world, you know, but
Yeah.
But he had his vaccination a few weeks ago, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, apparently he did. Yeah. I mean, we'll never know, will we?
or was it a placebo?
We'll never know.
I know.
Yeah. But thank you anyway.
Thank you.
Being so open and lovely that I, a complete apparent raving lunatic, speak.
Well, that's why I work with you, Susie. That's why I work with you, because you get like the people you work with.
Oh, God.
I'm the nutty one in my family. So
it's good to be a bit mad. It's more interesting.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Well, thank you all for this evening. Anyway.
Okay.
I'll see you soon, and thank you ever so much.
Thank
See
you.
you very
Bye.
soon.
Have a good week. See you
Bye.
next
Bye.
Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
No. No, no.